I could feel my muscles growing. The physicality of it was like the endorphin rush you get when you're like doing a massive setup and then a massive teardown. It was addictive.
All right, so our guest today is Jena Burchick, a filmmaker and professor at Towson University, who does that rare thing of living in both the creative trenches and the classroom. She teaches film production and theory at Towson, and before that spent over a decade working as a chief lighting tech and grip on union sets, which we also call a gaffer, right?
Yes.
Everything from commercials to House of Cards to Jason Bourne, just little productions. That was kind of fun. She's joining us at the perfect time because of her new film, What It Felt Like, which has been making the rounds at the festivals, getting some recognition at Hobnobbin, Maryland Film Fest, Morehouse's Human Rights Festival, Harvard's RPM Festival. And it's a deeply personal documentary about pregnancy, trauma, autonomy, and becoming a parent right after Roe was overturned. Jena, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I adore you guys, and I'm so happy to take this ride with you. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. So Jena, you've done kind of everything at this point. You are a professor. You worked at Serious Grip and Electric. For how many years did you work there?
I worked there for 10 years. Yeah. About maybe 7. I don't know. 7 to 10, somewhere in there. The pandemic really messed all of that up.
Yeah. And then you took this like kind of 180-degree turn into teaching.
Yeah.
At Towson, which we've had the opportunity to speak at your class, which has been awesome. And do you teach specifically a lighting class there?
I did. So I started as a lighting adjunct, and then when I found out that a full-time position was available and they were vetting me for that, I was applying for that process. It was for core positions. So I had to give up lighting, which they still tap me for if they can't fill it, which is nice. But I teach our senior thesis level classes. So I teach Film 3, which is our highest level narrative class, and Film 2 and Doc 2, which are intermediate filmmaking classes. And then I developed a course called Real World Professional Portfolio, which is a career preparedness class, which is where I've had you, Darren, and I've had Jessica Barudi-Sada. Hopefully, Dave, I'll have you. And
someday.
I'd love to have you. And I teach our seniors that are graduating all about the real world of film production and financial literacy and interview skills and making a reel and getting hired, going to grad school, all the things.
I'm curious, in regards to the kind of real world preparation class, what are some of the big things that you tell your kids? Because look, coming out of school, like you can have all the education in the world, but as we talked about earlier, the application on set is like massive. How do you even begin to prepare a student for transition into the real world?
I stay really fluid each semester. And so I have 18 students and they have to write me a free-form essay week 1, answering some questions about the more straightforward things, like what are your career goals, to some more like philosophical things, like what are your life goals? What are your happiness goals? How would you define happiness? So I kind of really analyze all those essays and I really customize the syllabus each semester. I have the main hard-hitting things that everyone should just have to know how to do, like cover letters, resumes, mock interviews. Everything they have is culminating in their own website. I pretty quickly figure out, okay, this is the right guest or guest this semester that could speak to this crop of students. If I've got more of a percentage of folks looking for 9-to-5 jobs or more people looking to work as freelancers, it actually ebbs and flows. And it keeps it really fresh for me, keeps me on my toes, and then keeps me tapped in to the local community for being like, hey, I've got folks this semester that I think would really, like this past semester, I had the vice president of IATSE 487, Steve Sada, come in and talk about why unions are important and why you might join one and when you might join one and things like that. But then previously I've had SAG, or I've had even just key PAs come if I have mostly folks that want to work up through production. So
that's
I kind of
huge. I feel like that's
customize
so
it.
invaluable. I mean, man, I never took a course that taught me anything about unions I mean, all of that was kind of learned on set in real time, talking to
Same.
people. So to have some of that knowledge going in as you're getting your first jobs and understanding, ultimately this is what I want to get is huge.
Yeah, I think liberal arts schools or film schools or whatever you want to call them do a very good job at teaching you how to be above the line, how to be a producer, a director, screenwriter, or let you dip your toes in being a cinematographer, an editor. But I think I got hired in 2016. I taught my first class. So I'm coming up on 10 years, and it's amazing and wild. I went, what are all the things I didn't know? And what are all the things that took me so much time to learn and was so hard to learn and such a headache to learn? Because when you're new, you don't even know what questions to ask. And so that's really how I developed that course, and also how I even apply that knowledge into my narrative capstone classes or my documentary classes. What are things that were really hard for me or mistakes that I've made that maybe I could be transparent about with my students and help them expedite the process or go in more gently or be able to be self-advocates, all of the things.
And it seems like you're still making time. You're obviously still making time for your own projects.
Yeah, well, academia forces you to do that. It's split up as professors and percentages. So teaching is your highest load. Service is your smallest load, even though I do too much of that, which is keeping the department running, or I love to run events for our students. And then scholarship is your last branch. And so where scientists could be doing experiments, I make films. And in order for them to count in academia, they have to be reviewed, meaning they have to get into things. So you can't just make art, you have to make successful art. And I love that push. I like deadlines. I've always liked deadlines. In high school, it was like equally weighted between film, theater, and journalism. Like I like a production date. So for me, I try to do a lot of my creating in the summers or January when I'm not teaching. And I like to try to do my disseminating, which lines up very well with the film festival circuit, during the school year where I have less time and access to actually create. And so that's kind of how I worked it out. And then I know you all know this, but some of the beauty of doc or verite doc or, and I don't have a client, is these can be multi-year projects. So I'm kicking out a film every 3 years at this point, which is a speed I'm enjoying.
That is nice. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, so this latest film, I mean, super personal and very, gosh, what's the word? I've been trying to search for the word of how I felt watching this.
What did it feel like, Darren? What did it feel like?
Well, that's a loaded question. I'm a guy watching this, and it's called What It Felt Like. But I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was very moving. I thought it was well paced. I thought it was, it felt like it built to a climax. And I'm curious to know sort of, and where can people watch this, by the way? Because we're going to talk about it. And I know it's probably not out yet, but hopefully people can maybe see a clip or a trailer or something, or.
Yeah. I do need to cut a trailer. I will admit that I've not done that. I can tell you that there's a festival in the spring in Maryland that you could attend, but I can't tell you which one, or else I'll be disqualified from it.
Oh, dang it. Okay. Well, we'll find a way to get you a clip or something of this, maybe in the description below.
Yeah, you could go to my website and read all about it, and follow me on Instagram, Jena Burchick at Instagram, and I will post as soon as I can, let you know what festivals I'm forthcoming. I'm going to continue touring for another year on the festival circuit, and then decide what to do with it. This film is so personal and raw that I don't think it will ever be publicly available online.
Got it.
Yeah, I think community spaces. I've done some academic conferences already, film festivals, but I think the next step would be maybe to collaborate with some like doula birthing centers, places,
Hmm.
family centers in Baltimore. And I'm more interested in speaking to other birthing parents or young families or prospective families. About it to encourage them to tell their own birth stories, and less interested in, I mean, I'm very vested in this filmic conversation, but less interested in it being more film festival centered conversations where people are going to ask me about my aspect ratio decisions, which you can totally do.
Which we
Which
will
I was
do,
just
yeah.
about to do.
And then it is fun to get very like heady and nerdy, and I'm super down. But I'm really interested in someone coming up to me, and it's happened thus far, telling me their birth story and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
letting me pour it out.
I mean, it's such a, as Darren mentioned, it's such a personal film, and it's so beautifully. I'm going to ask you about it though, because I felt like when I was watching it, I felt like the aesthetic was a really important character in the film. I mean, you chose a very nostalgic look, and I'm just curious if you could walk me through kind of how you came about that rather than making some other choices.
Sure. Yeah. So, for those of you that like, haven't seen it or you can't catch it at a festival yet, the film is a frame within a frame, and it's a small square with a lot of vacant black space, and it's mocking celluloid. So the first 90% of the film was actually shot on my iPhone and then fed through Instagram stories through a Super 8mm app. And then whatever, if I shot something horizontally and I couldn't feed it through the app, I had to recreate that look in After Effects and Premiere. And then the very end of the film is shot actually on Super 8 film. And it's very intentional. I've done a lot of research in previous films that I've done. I have a feature called Mom and M, where I collaborated with my participants a lot, and wanted them to be kind of cinematographers of their own story, a very participatory level of filmmaking that's very ethically conscious of what are you capturing for your home movies. And it really opened up my eyes as, I guess, an elder millennial of we film everything in 10-second bursts now. I invite you to go through your photo reel and look at how long you take videos. And that is how we're remembering our lives, versus when I was a kid and my dad had the handy cam and it was the whole 3-hour birthday, and it was original, observational, cinema verite filmmaking. And that is what my memories are of that time, to where now memories of my daughter or my life really is in these like fragments. And so I did that research in a previous film, and as I was working on this one, as I was working on what it felt like, the postpartum period, the pregnancy period, it happens so fast. And I even have a line in the film that says it all happens so fast.
Yeah.
Like there's barely any time to process any of it. And so I was trying to help audiences feel how intangible memories are, how fragmented they are. I don't remember things in HD. I remember things kind of in watercolor. And so I wanted folks with the aesthetic of the film to kind of feel that. And then as I felt like my postpartum anxiety was healing and time was starting to slow, that's when I opened up the frame and I shot it on actual, tangible, you can touch it, celluloid. So
I think that was at 1813. Is that when it happens?
Yeah, when I'm on the beach with my daughter.
Yeah. Because I noticed that. I was like, oh, hello.
Yeah. Because that's when I felt like literally the night before I shot that, or my husband shot that, was the first time Nora slept for 5 hours. And so like we both woke up feeling like new humans, and we're able to kind of enjoy life. And then the final reason why I shot most of it in that smaller frame is because I did want folks that haven't given birth or don't have a child in whatever way that the child has come to them. I didn't want them to have full access to my story. I did want there to be a little bit of space. My body is in the film. The most traumatic parts of my life with having a high-risk pregnancy are in the film.
Sure.
Some of the most beautiful moments of my life, but they're my life. And so I think as filmmakers, and I never plan on making a film about myself ever, but when I think about my ethical considerations for my participants, you're freezing them in that time period forever. So anyone that watches this film will see this part of my life, and this is who I am for them forever. And so I needed some space and breath to say, hey, you don't get full access to this story. You get to observe what I'm letting you observe. And then you get to then have some space to also relate to it in whatever way feels best for you.
Well, can we go back like a little bit further to like your decision to make the film?
Yeah, it was, did you have more to that question? Sorry.
Well, no, I think I just, what I was thinking of, you know, because Dave and I also make films, and you know, there is that sort of artistic balance of like what's too personal. You know, we ask other people to do these really personal things, but are we willing to do that? And I was just curious, you know, as you started to tell as the story unfolds, were you consciously making a film at that point, or were you just capturing moments? And why did you make this film?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I love this question. I love this question because if you asked me as a filmmaker and someone especially like visually minded with cinematography and gaffing and things like that, do I recommend shooting a film on an outdated iPhone? No, like that's not what I would teach my students. That's not, I wasn't making a film. I had never been pregnant. I had never had to wait to see if I could become pregnant. I had never, and then having a high risk pregnancy, that all happened very rapidly. And even though my partner is probably the most there for you partner one could imagine, there's a lot of moments where you're sitting in some stirrups by yourself in a doctor's office, waiting for a doctor to come in. And sometimes that's like 30 minutes. And so my phone my camera offered me a degree of separation as a filmmaker and human to get some space from my life. And so I was capturing things because I needed action. I was capturing things because I needed forward mobility. And sometimes it was also just like, oh, wow, look how massive I am. Let's see what, like, I just want to capture that. Like, there's a moment where there's a scroll of all of the things I didn't like about being pregnant, but you just see my toes.
I love that shot.
I
love that shot.
That was just like, this is so funny. Like, you know, so there's beautiful moments too. And then once my daughter comes, it's, trying to just capture all of it, knowing that none of it is permanent. So what happened is I was getting ready to come back to work after parental leave, and I was going to be up for tenure, and I had a very big verite piece that I still have not finished with over 100 hours of footage on a hard drive. And I no longer was going to be able to do 12-hour plus editing sessions, which is what my editing workflow had always been. My husband would slide a plate of food at the door. I would cobble
like
over.
a prisoner.
Keep editing. And I couldn't, my entire approach to work changed with having a newborn. I am unapologetically an incredibly present parent, and that's how I choose to parent. And I don't want to miss a moment of her life, but I also am employed and a filmmaker and a worker. So I was sitting finally back in my office and going, what am I going to do? And I just started looking at pictures of my kid, which allowed me to scroll through my phone. And I went, I have so much footage. And I had 40 minutes and I just started dumping it into a timeline. And then I didn't get back to my office for a week. And then I came back to my office and I was playing again. And it's the first time as a filmmaker I've ever played I've always kind of been linear, kind of in a box. You know, you've got your interview, you transcribe it, you've got your B-roll. And I was just effing around. And I've always written poetry privately, very privately.
Yeah, I was gonna say the narration is very poetic.
Yeah, thank you. And I had a rough night one night and woke up and I just started writing. And all of a sudden, I felt like I was healing myself by making this piece. And I went, oh, that's interesting. I've always made art to try to get similar to what I think you all do with raw tuba or throw or the pizza doc that you've done, hockey.
Yep, hockey rising. Yep.
Yeah, is you give people an invitation of privilege to sit in a living room with someone they may not otherwise sit with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the type of, you know, the work I've done. And I love that work. And hopefully maybe they can heal by seeing themselves in someone else. And all of a sudden I went, I can use this tool to heal myself. I get to do this. I get to choose to do this too. And then I just kept going. And then it became a film.
It makes you sort of proactive about your own story. Like, it makes you take ownership of it a little bit and like own it, I think. And I mean, I've never made anything that personal, but I know that it's got to feel empowering, right? To kind of be like, this, you know, this really hard thing that we went through and I went through, this is the story of that. And this is all that we did and went through. I don't know. But is there an empowering element to it?
Absolutely. I think absolutely in this day and age, right now, in this country, in this time, for a woman, a cisgendered woman, to be able to publicly own her birth story in a place where rapidly bodily autonomy is on the chopping block in this country, it feels radical. It feels deeply motivating. It makes me feel enthusiastic and enraged and connected. And I just came off of getting to screen this in Parkway 1, which is like the biggest theater at the Parkway Theater for Maryland Film Festival. And, you know, I'm sitting on the balcony and my mom's holding my hand, watching the film for the very first time. And then I'm hearing strangers crying at certain parts and laughing, thank God, because there's supposed to be humor in it at other parts. And I'm seeing my body 20 feet long on a screen. And instead of feeling like nervous or how I thought I would feel, to be honest, it just felt just very right for wanting to just do anything to try to move the needle of the message of bodily autonomy in the country right now. Yeah. It made me feel really proud of myself, to be honest. Like, I think teenage me would be like, fuck yeah. Sorry.
I'm proud of you, Jena.
Thanks.
I think it is pretty rad. It's like, it's also, I mean, so obviously Dave and I are both parents and we've been active partners in the pregnancy process, but it's obviously very different from a female perspective. And I can say from my perspective, watching this, it feels like I'm with you the whole time, you know, like through this process. And by the end, feeling like I had been through, I know what being with somebody who's pregnant feels like multiple times. And so does Dave. And I think just like you just captured it in this beautiful poetic way. And tearing up by the end and feel like, I mean, it is a beautiful closing. I don't want to ruin it for anyone who's going to watch it, but just how you kind of brought it back to the end. And what I don't know. One shot that stood out to me was the spider web.
Oh yeah.
And it was at the perfect point too, because I think I wrote a note about it, about how it was like at that moment, feeling like you're stuck, like you're. It's almost like, for me, it felt like I was trapped in parenthood, Not always, but like it's 3 a.m. and your child's crying or whatever. And like, there's nothing you have to keep this child alive and eating. And that spider web, I was like, like captured how I felt.
I had an unplanned emergency C-section, and so because of that, I had already been going through labor for 24 hours. And so my body, like a planned C-section, you're still healing from major surgery. But on top of that, I had a lot of trauma in my body. So it wasn't a standard C-section. And so where you're supposed to have a C-section and then you get wheeled to your recovery space, you're supposed to start walking pretty much immediately. Like that was not the case for me. And so I really could not get out of bed. Like I consider myself someone with a high pain tolerance and a lot of sheer will, and especially being a female and gripping electric and like knowing that you're constantly testing your body physically, like no problem. And I was stuck in that hospital bed. And so to have all of these people coming in and saying what they're going to do with my kid, of like giving her her first bath and her first round of shots. And my husband did every diaper change for the first like 5 days. I was not even part of that. And so the only thing that made me feel like I was valid and a participant in this was the fact that she would latch and I could nurse her. It was, and that, I mean, that was like every freaking hour. So like I was working, but like, I felt very stuck. And then on top of it, you're just inundated as new parents. So you both know of like, okay, make sure you're doing this and also do this and then also do this and also do this, but do that, but take care of yourself, but sleep and like all the things.
But it's different for a guy than it is for a woman. I mean, like, it's hard for a guy, but we're not physically traumatized. It's it just this day and age, it brings up, like, I've thought about this a lot, this day and age where we feel so technologically advanced as a society and as, but pregnancy is still so dangerous, and it's still, it's like there's still so much that can go wrong, and there's still with all this stuff we have and all this stuff we know.
Yeah, well, that's where the TikTok stuff came into the play, into the film, because I started using TikTok, and don't follow me. I don't make them. I just watch them. So you will find nothing on my page. But I started watching them during the pandemic because I've always had such a ethnographic adoration of doc. Like I just want to watch people exist. And that's what I felt like the original TikToks was like people in quarantine with their parents making dance videos and stuff. And so I've always had an algorithm, right? Because as soon as you participate, you get one. And immediately during pregnancy, I liked like one video and it was like all over. I mean, like all of the TikToks that are in my film, I did not search for. They were all on my For You page. Like they were all sent to me. And now if you look at my algorithm, my daughter is 2 years and almost 9 months old. And everything is 3-year-olds. And it's how I should probably be a stay-at-home mom. And I should be a homesteader. And I should be knitting her Christmas presents. And she should have an activity book every day because here's where she should be developmentally. And, but also go on date nights with your husband. Oh, and also, but then some of them are folks that are like, I can deeply commiserate with and are super real. And so I continue participating in the machine. Because sometimes parenthood, each season, each fleeting chapter can feel so isolating.
Yeah.
It is nice to have these little bursts of feeling connected or to laugh at the absurdism of it. I don't know. So that's like, what are you talking about where we're at with technology? I had to include, even though I had such a nostalgic feel to the aesthetic, I felt like I had to include this like bigger world because it was so ever present in each chapter of my experience. And it still is today. This algorithm that we're part of, and however we choose to participate, it does have an impact or influence on our lives, on our mental health, on how we shape our opinions of things. And so, I put that in there just as observational commentary of like, you also get to decide how you participate in these influences of how you're supposed to show up or be stuck in the spider web or not, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting too, like talking about parenthood and the things you go through as seasons, right? Because when you're in them, and that was one of the big things that I loved about your film, especially some of the points where you're really kind of thin and emotionally thin and breaking down a little bit. Like, I think when you're in those moments, especially as a parent, it's easy to be like, oh my God, I can't do this forever. Like this is, and it's so difficult, but everything's like a season and you go through really great times and things feel easy. And then sleep regression happens and you're like, oh man, it's hard again. And then, something changes. And I love that. I felt like your film, it was like getting a glimpse inside your journal, like a really personal glimpse inside something that you've been writing to your daughter. And even as a parent now who's well past your stage, we have Darren and I both have kind of older kids, but have kind of gone through similar phases. It immediately kind of brought me back to that kind of, oh man, that's right. I remember those sleepless nights. I remember like what it was like to be completely tired and exhausted, but still having to move forward and keep this baby, on track. And I thought your film just illustrated that wonderfully.
Yeah,
the moment you like break down, felt like, oh my God. Like, I think every parent has been there. A friend of ours, I won't say his name, but we were talking about, what it feels like at 3 a.m. when like you've just been sleep tortured, and it's just like you just look at the baby and you're just like, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. I think it's funny, like you're talking about like go the fuck to sleep. And so like I make the audience sit in the dark for only 30 seconds of hearing my kid cry. But both of you know how long that was, it's hours, So like, I think it's really funny because you all know film festivals, you don't always get to pick who your audience is. So sometimes you're thoughtfully curated in like a very specific block. And then other times it is like, grab bag. And then I also play for students and things like that too. So I try to prep if I can tell that the audience is like a non-birthing parent, or parent audience, I'll try to say like, look, I still think you can deeply relate to this film if you can pick a piece of your life where there was before and there was after. And you are completely changed by that process. But have you actually taken the time to unpack it? And how little time do we actually spend in our lives through these transformative moments, stopping and asking ourselves how we got there, why they were transformative to begin with, and what parts of myself am I like embracing through that change. And so, I don't know. I just like, I think it's so funny though, because like, regardless of how on board they are, everyone always finds that 30 seconds to be so torturous. And then it makes me laugh so hard because I'm like, you don't even know how long.
Oh,
you don't
no,
even
it's
know
sleep torture.
And that wasn't the only time.
To bring the baby to
it becomes a form of birth control, I think, in my classroom.
Oh, seriously. I was watching this thing and like, oh my God, nobody's going to have a baby after they watch this.
I know.
But it does end beautifully. And like, it is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I have a absolutely stunning sound designer, Anna Satina, did the sound for the film. And I only was going to use one collaborator. I was going to do everything else myself. And so when I was looking for my sound designer, it needed to be a birthing parent. I needed to have somebody that had given birth to like be able to put their own inspiration into the process. And oh my gosh, did she do such a fantastic job. But every time we would meet, it would be like, I don't have to touch that part again, right? Like, can we not touch that
it's like
part's
ASMR.
fine.
I felt like it was, I loved the sound design. It was so, it nailed it. And it was subtle, but at the same time, I felt like gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, and a Satina, if anyone ever needs a sound designer, sound re-record artist.
Well, I do think we should touch on, you have had a really rare career path, in that you're a female and I don't know, maybe the most male part of the filmmaking industry, which is like grip and electric.
100% it is. It has to
Yeah.
be.
It's just a bunch of dudes and they're kind of sometimes grouchy dudes, but they're the most hard worked.
Yeah, I always call them the Lost Boys in my head. Maybe not to all their faces, and if any of them are listening, I mean that with like such a compliment because like when I graduated, I knew I wanted to be like a cinematographer. Was the first place like maybe a DP for docs. I think that's where I graduated undergrad in 2011, and I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. And I was able to AC on a couple jobs, and ACs I have so much respect for, but you basically just have to love computers. And I didn't really know that at the time, that like a camera is a computer and it's going to change every 2 years. And then you just need to know the computer again. And as an AC, you need to know every part of that because DPs sometimes don't even know how to use the camera, and then you're standing there and you're getting them coffee and it's like, that's what you're doing. And you're doing so many incredible, important things, but it felt very like static and very like internal. And I am very external. And I was on a Red Cross training video and I was a second AC and DIT. And I look over and I see Mark Elsie, who's an incredible gaffer, and maybe Dan Stack, and they're just like, their lighting setup is done, and they're just pushing each other, racing down a hallway on some like wheelie office chairs, and they're so excited and they're so happy, and like I just was like, what are they doing? And then we come back to set, and they do the most insane painting with light ever, like the most beautiful lighting setup, and I was like, that I want that. That's so fun, and it's a team effort. It's a bigger team than the camera department, and so again, utmost respect for the camera department. I shoot all my own stuff. It's so awesome, but for me, when I was crewing, I liked the camaraderie. I liked that it was just enough removed from where the director was at, where you could ask a lot more audible questions and like, why are we doing that? How are we doing that? You don't have to be as quiet. I could feel my muscles growing. The physicality of it was like the endorphin rush you get when you're like doing a massive setup and then a massive teardown. It was addictive. Like that season of my life has passed, I feel, and now I just like to tap back into it. But it was absolutely incredible. But I only worked with 2 to 3 women in 10 years of doing it.
Wow.
And that was very inconsistently. 2 were on House of Cards and not directly only one was directly in my department. The other was an electric. So I was grip on House of Cards and the other person was an electric. Never did I work on a commercial with another woman in my department.
What's it going to take to change that? I mean, it's like light is everything in photography, and it's to me, it's the fuel for what makes it great. And so like, how do you get a different perspective and it's not just Lost Boys?
Yeah, I think it is changing. I think that I came up like, both of you all, I'm not going to ask your ages, but like we remember life before
43.
the internet, right?
Yeah.
Like, right. We remember life before the internet, right? We're old enough to remember that. I think so half my career was pre Time's Up and pre Me Too movement, and half of my career was after that. And so all of my formative years were, for lack of a better term, boys club, before a lot of set safety was in place, before Sarah Jones' death occurred. There was a lot of rules get put into place after accidents happen. A lot of widespread things happen after people like Kevin Spacey get taken off of a show, right? And so now I think that there's a safer place of a point of entry for female or non-binary folks to join G&E, where it didn't feel like that when I joined. You know, I had to have a really, really thick skin and put up with a lot of stuff, but then also have pockets of the nicest, most incredible mentors and young men that I could ever imagine. You know, I am around some of like the smartest academics in film by being a professor, and the smartest people that I've ever met work at Sirius Griffin Electric, and most well-rounded as well.
100%. I feel like it's a job too where you have to fix so many. All you're doing is fixing problems, right?
Yeah.
Like constantly solving
Okay.
problems, whether it's like a creative problem or an actual problem. That's like the whole job, and it's physical. Like I've always thought. So you know, I didn't go to film school. Dave didn't go to film school. We came from a journalism background, and so it was very intimidating getting into the commercial world and the video production world years ago. And I always was fascinated by the G&E department because they seemed to know everything. They knew every piece of gear, every fix, every light that we needed. Like a lot of times when we directed a commercial at the very beginning, it was always like calling Hutch and being like, "What do we do, Hutch?" you know?
Yeah.
And it's so I feel like more and more people need to do it, especially women. It's just like a very unique perspective on it.
Yeah, I think there's also a really great value in if you can see it, you can be it. And, you know, I think that social media can be useful in that way. I think I now have a couple of female and non-binary folks on Instagram that this one person, I can't remember her handle, but she does little stories on how to do stuff. This is how I would raise an M18. This is how I would reach this thing out of a truck. This is how I would connect speed rail together if I'm building a 20 by 20 flag. Like I didn't have that. The best I could do, and I will not name his name, but was follow the shortest grip around and then watch how he climbed stuff and watch how he did stuff, or maybe even like as I was building up, we call them shop muscles, as I was building up my shop muscles and stuff, or play games like a grip Olympics at Sirius to try to like figure out how to do things faster and more efficiently. But you also had to be really self-motivated and ask a lot of questions and seek out a lot of mentorship. And now I think like there are more females out there that are like, well, I didn't have that, so let me show you how to do that. Let me give you that. And I'm also around more female professors than I was when I first started. You know, when I first started, I think there were 2 females in my class of 18. And then now it's like 50-50. So I do think that there's more incentives now for minority filmmakers, more funding for minority filmmakers. And then folks like Jordan Peele have apprenticeship programs that are paid to get people trained on their sets. So I know we've talked about a lot of like very deep and beautiful things today, and there's a lot of very easy ways to be pessimistic about the state of the world, about politics or whatever, you know, a lot of dumpster fire type stuff. And the film industry is very slow right now, but I am optimistic about our youth. I think there's a lot, because of the isolation of COVID, they've come back together with this grit that is not individual. It is collective. And it is, and even in my classrooms, the competitive energy is not, I'm better than you. It's how can we all get there? And so I do think and I am happy to see a few more folks that I know are my students that have graduated as females and are doing G&E or doing the camera department or have joined the camera union. And I've been teaching long enough now that some of them have had pretty long careers at this point already, and they're training up the next generation, right? And like that's why you do it.
That's what you do.
That's why you all have awesome interns that are sometimes from Towson. You know, it's that's how the change happens, I guess. It's just breaking those generational chains of how things have been done and how we get to decide how they get to go moving forward.
Well, that's kind of a great way to end it.
Yeah, I was trying to get there for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jena. Now get the fuck out of the van.
Oh, all right, tuck and roll. Bye.
Everybody.
That's it.
No. We would love for you to stay in the van forever, and hopefully we can, when your film is on demand or wherever it's gonna live eventually, we can share that and have you on again in the future.
Thank you. I have so much love for ELM and for all of you guys, and it's been a total pleasure.
Likewise.
Do it again. I'll hop in the van anytime.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you, Jena.
Thanks, Jena.
Uh-oh, what was that? I don't know, but let's get out of here.